Welcome back to Book with Joys, the podcast where we talk about building relationships that feel safe, secure, and deeply fulfilling. Today we're diving into one of the most important and most misunderstood concepts in love and relationships: emotional availability. You've probably heard the advice, don't fall for someone who's emotionally unavailable. But what does that really mean? How do you know if someone is truly emotionally present? And maybe even more importantly, how do you know if you are emotionally available yourself? That's exactly what we're going to explore today. By the end of this episode, you'll know how to spot emotional availability, how to recognize unavailability, and how to cultivate the kind of love that doesn't just survive, but thrives. Why emotional availability matters. Let's start with the big question. Why does this matter so much? Relationships without emotional availability often look fine on the outside. You might have great chemistry, strong attraction, and even fun together. But underneath, something feels off. You share your feelings and they deflect. You need support and they go silent. You try to connect deeply, and they shut down. This creates one of the most painful dynamics in love: being lonely inside a relationship. And that loneliness, the ache of lying next to someone who isn't really there with you, hurts far more than being single. Contrast that with an emotionally available partner. They lean in when things get hard. They make space for your feelings. They're not perfect, but they're present. That presence changes everything. Because true intimacy isn't built on chemistry. It's built on emotional availability. Part 2. What emotional availability really looks like. Let's get practical. What does emotional availability look like in day-to-day life? I'll break it down into 6 key signs. 1. They listen without dismissing you. They don't roll their eyes when you're upset. They don't rush to fix you or change the subject. Instead, they lean in with curiosity. Tell me more. I want to understand. 2. They take responsibility. They can say, I messed up. I see how that hurt you. I'll do better. This is huge, because accountability builds trust. 3. Their words match their actions. If they say they'll call, they do. If they promise commitment, their behavior reflects it. You don't feel like you're living on crumbs of broken promises. 4. They make space for your feelings. They don't shame you for crying or scold you for being angry. They don't label you as too much. Instead, they say, your feelings matter. 5. They share their inner world. This isn't one-sided. They let you in too. They share their fears, dreams, and insecurities. They allow themselves to be vulnerable. 6. They stay present in hard times. Anyone can be around when things are fun. True availability shows up in the hard moments. Conflict, stress, disappointment. They don't run. They stay. Part 3. What emotional unavailability looks like. On the flip side, what are the red flags of unavailability? They avoid tough conversations. They're hot and cold, leaving you guessing. They blame you for everything instead of reflecting. They give love in spurts but withdraw when closeness deepens. They disappear when you're struggling. When you're with someone emotionally unavailable, you often feel like you're too much, or like you have to work hard to earn their attention. But here's the truth. It's not you. It's the dynamic. Part 4. Why so many people struggle with availability. Why is emotional availability so rare? It often comes back to attachment styles and early childhood experiences. If you grew up with inconsistent care, you might develop anxious attachment, craving closeness but fearing abandonment. If you grew up with emotional neglect, you might develop avoidant attachment, keeping walls up to stay safe. Trauma, heartbreak, or cultural conditioning can all make vulnerability feel dangerous. The result? Adults who desperately want love but don't know how to let themselves be seen. This doesn't mean people can't change. But it does mean emotional availability requires awareness, healing, and practice. Part 5. Cultivating emotional availability. Here's the empowering part. Emotional availability is not just something you find in others. It's something you can develop in yourself. Practical steps. 1. Face your feelings. One of the biggest barriers to emotional availability is the habit of numbing or avoiding emotions. Many of us grew up with messages like, "Don't cry," "Calm down," or "Be strong," which taught us that feelings were weaknesses to hide rather than signals to honor. But here's the truth. Feelings are data. They're messages from your inner world about what you need, what matters to you, and where your boundaries lie. When you suppress them, they don't disappear. They leak out in resentment, shutdowns, or passive aggression. How to practice. Start with simple naming. When you feel a shift inside, pause and say, "I feel anxious. I feel tired. I feel excited." Don't judge or explain the feeling. Just name it. If naming feels difficult, use a feelings wheel, a simple chart listing emotions, until your vocabulary grows. Example. You come home after a draining day and your partner asks, "What's wrong?" Instead of brushing it off with, "I'm fine," you pause, scan your body, and say, "I feel exhausted and overwhelmed." That one moment of honesty creates connection. 2. Share vulnerably. Emotional availability isn't just about knowing your own feelings. It's about letting others see them. Vulnerability is scary because it carries risk. What if they don't understand? What if they judge me? But it's also the doorway to intimacy. Vulnerability equals letting yourself be known. You don't need to overshare or spill everything at once. Start small. Share a piece of your inner world, a hope, a fear, a memory, or even just a moment of joy. How to practice. Begin with low-stakes vulnerability. For example, "I get nervous at work meetings, even when I look calm." Gradually work towards sharing deeper feelings like loneliness, fear of rejection, or the desire for closeness. Notice how safe people respond. With care, curiosity, or support. That builds trust over time. Example. Instead of saying, "It doesn't matter after a fight," you try, "The truth is, it does matter. I felt hurt when I didn't hear from you today." That small act of honesty strengthens the relationship. 3. Take responsibility. Nothing builds emotional availability faster than owning your mistakes. And nothing erodes it faster than defensiveness. When we deflect or minimize our impact, we send the message, "Your feelings aren't valid." But when we acknowledge our role, we create safety. The other person realizes, "I can bring my hurt to you, and you won't punish me for it. You'll own it and work with me." How to practice. When someone says you hurt them, pause before defending yourself. Reflect, what part of their experience might be true, even if I didn't intend harm? Respond with ownership. "You're right, I interrupted you. I see how that made you feel unheard. I'll be more mindful." Example. Instead of, "You're too sensitive, I was just joking," you say, "I didn't realize my words landed that way. I can see they hurt you, and I'll do better." That simple shift transforms conflict into closeness. 4. Stay present in conflict. Most of us learn two unhealthy strategies in conflict: shut down, stonewall, avoid, go silent, or explode, yell, blame, attack. Both are ways of escaping discomfort. But emotional availability requires staying present even when it's hard. How to practice. When conflict heats up, notice your body. Is your chest tight, voice loud, palms sweaty? Pause. Take a slow breath. Ground yourself by noticing something physical, feet on the floor, hands on your lap. Say, I need a moment, but I want to come back to this. Then return once calmer. Focus on listening as much as speaking. Example, your partner says, I don't feel heard. Instead of shutting down with silence or snapping back, you never appreciate me. You pause, breathe, and say, okay, I want to hear you. Can you tell me what you need right now? That choice keeps connection alive. Seek therapy or coaching. Emotional availability is a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned. If vulnerability feels terrifying or foreign, that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you might need help unlearning old patterns. Therapy, coaching, or even support groups give you tools and safe spaces to practice. How to practice? Work with a therapist on exploring your attachment history. Practice emotional expression in a safe setting. Learn new regulation strategies for staying calm under stress. Use the guidance of a professional to identify blind spots and practice healthier patterns. Example. In therapy, you realize that every time your partner pulls away, you panic and overtext them. With guidance, you learn to pause, self-soothe, and then communicate your needs clearly instead of anxiously chasing. That shift creates a healthier dynamic. The bigger picture. Each of these 5 practices builds on the others. When you face your feelings, you can then share them vulnerably. When you take responsibility, you build trust to stay present in conflict. And if it feels too overwhelming, therapy gives you the tools to keep going. The more you practice, the more emotionally available you become. Not just for others, but for yourself. And that is the foundation of a relationship where both partners feel safe, seen, and cherished. When you practice this, you create a space where deeper intimacy can grow. And you attract partners who are ready to meet you there. Part 6. How to recognize and choose an available partner. When you're dating or evaluating your relationship, here are key questions to ask. Do they listen without defensiveness? Do they apologize when they're wrong? Are their actions consistent with their words? Do they make space for your emotions? Do they share their own inner world? Do they stay engaged during tough times? If the answer is yes to most of these, you've likely found emotional availability. If the answer is no, it may be time to reconsider. Are you investing in someone who's truly able to love you the way you deserve? So here's the bottom line. Emotional availability is the heartbeat of real love. Without it, you're left chasing scraps of intimacy. With it, you feel safe, seen, and cherished. Don't settle for charm without presence. Don't confuse chemistry with intimacy. Look for the partner who shows up, consistently, vulnerably, and wholeheartedly. Because that's what love really looks like. If this episode resonated with you, I dive even deeper into emotional availability, attachment styles, and building secure relationships you could find at the link in the description. And don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with a friend, and leave a review. It helps us spread the message that real love is possible, and it starts with safety and emotional presence.